This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity Podcast. Today's discussion is inflation flat, GDP up, deficits a disaster. So here are the three topics today. First, inflation came in flat from last month, a welcome relief, at least the key indicator metric that the Fed likes to look at, came in flat last month in September from a month ago, and that was a welcome relief to the markets, which are flat today. They're a little bit up, but flat today. Over the last week, between world upheaval, GDP growth being hot, consumer spending being hot, the markets have gotten slammed. Also, you saw Google's slowing growth. A number of things led to the markets being slammed this past week. Or at least part of that was gross domestic product, GDP, coming in so hot that it leads people to believe rates will have to stay higher for longer than expected, as the Fed has been saying. So you got two metrics that have gone in different directions, one leading the market a little bit better today. Inflation came in a little bit softer, not higher, but GDP came in horrible. Now, the third thing that really is the fuel to all this fire, and people could try and convince me differently, but I don't agree, is the country ran a $2 trillion deficit last year. That's an amazing number. If you look at $2 trillion out of a total economy that's 26 to 28 trillion, at the end of the day, you've got a situation where right there, that's almost 8 to 10% inflation, which is a horrendous number. 2 trillion or 28 trillion, maybe 6 to 7% inflation. But when you think about that govgovernment spend versus what we're bringing in, that itself leads to horrendously horrible inflation. You're just putting more money into the economy than you're taking in. So you end up in a situation where that leads to 6-7% inflation, which means the Fed has to raise rates so high just to fight that deficit spending. So that's the third item on the agenda today, is deficit spending. That's stupid and a self-inflicted wound that our politicians can't seem to get away from. The fourth thing I will talk about is China. So China is a great conundrum, but at the end of the day, our leaders deal with China, in my perspective, in one of the dumbest ways you can. They're constantly sort of fighting tariffs or deciding we can't sell this chip to them, we can't do this, we can't do that. At the end of the day, our politicians seem so hell-bent on playing to their side of the table, the right, the left, whoever, the anti-China fever. At the end of the day, somehow or another, we have to engage with China in a very positive, constructive way. At worst, we've got to get back to détente with them like we had with Russia for a very long time. This idea that we could really become worldwide rivals and not have a relationship with China and just fight back and forth through tariffs and stuff like that is the most silly, jingoistic concept that you could possibly have. One way or another, we've got to find a way. China may be an imperfect nation. I don't disagree. I'm not a fan of the Chinese Communist Party. One way or another, we have to find a way to engage with and have détente of some sort with China. Anything else is not going to work for the long run. That's the thought on that. So we've really got four topics today. We've got inflation. We've got the gross domestic product. We've got deficit, and we've got China. And the basic concept is to get inflation down is we've got to cut the deficits at the end of the day, because if we do it the other way, if we just keep on raising rates, we're just going to kill all of us. Gross domestic product, of course it went up when you got a $2 trillion deficit. If it doesn't go up with the $2 trillion deficit, that would be insane. The China relationship, the thinking on both sides of the aisle where they just want to demonize China. I mean, I'm on board with demonizing Iran. I completely buy into that. This complete demonization of China, it's not possible. We have to figure out a détente with China. We've got to get our politicians willing to talk constructively to the world and to engage constructively with the world wherever possible. In China, we have no choice. We're the second biggest country in the world. We better find a way to do it. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity Podcast. I hope, again, I've not offended too many people today. It's my usual way of dealing, but feel free, if you like this, to text me at 773-766-5322. If you're the first person that texts me, we'll send you a $100 Amazon gift certificate. You got to text me today, whatever day is today, October 27th. It's got to be today. You got to be the first person. You can't be someone that's grabbed this gift certificate many times over the last few that's grabbed it more than once over the last month or two. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity Podcast. Thank you.